Welcome, one and all, to the live stream ahead of day one of the Cheltenham Festival. If you followed us on our pilgrimage to this point, thank you very much indeed. And if you haven't, then welcome anyway. And please do like and subscribe to our channel. It does help us out here at The Jump Show. I'm Tom Bull. I'm alongside Jake Price and Dan Overall to discuss all of the day one action. We got declarations this morning. And Jake, I know, particularly, I think, for you, it was a most exciting few hours.
It was. Obviously, I love doing the decks and everything, but there were a few pain points in the decks today, which was a bit annoying. I'm sure we'll come on to them as we go through each race, and I'm sure a few people have been burnt today on a couple of horses. But anyway, we're here now. We've got the final decks, and it's just gonna be nice to talk about Cheltenham without having to worry about which race Ballyburn's going to be running in.
You were overdue some pain, I think. I had more than my fair share. So, I wasn't really that sympathetic. I was like, you know what? This is just the universe evening itself out slightly. So welcome to my world.
Enough. I'm surprised you've still got a smile on your face, Dad, to be honest, after all that's happened over the last few weeks.
It's water off a duck's back at this stage. Like, the thing is, I'm now going in there with kind of very low expectations, which is nice. Like, I feel no pressure, really. It's great. Although the fun thing that has buoyed me is Astronomic View winning by half the track today. A horse who looked like he'd never win has won by 21 lengths. That's got to be a good sign, surely.
Could that be an hors d'oeuvre for the main course to come? Let's talk about the ground, shall we, chaps? Because it's been a bit of a point of contention over the last few days. I just saw on Twitter, actually, Ed Quigley, who is long shot Ted, lives in Cheltenham. He's just said that it's absolutely pouring down. I know that about a week ago, we were due, I think, 10 mils of rain tomorrow. I think that has abated slightly. Jake, what have you heard about the ground?
Well, I've just had a quick look on the website. So there were 7 mils overnight, which turned it from good to soft on, the old course to soft. And just looking now, since midnight, we've had another 7.2 mils. So, yeah, we're looking absolutely soft ground, nothing better.
Okay, good stuff. And Dan, I just want in a few words, how would you sum up your excitement ahead of the Cheltenham Festival this year?
Is that a shirt iron in the background? That's actually, that's a t-shirt and a jumper. Don't worry. If you want a real wardrobe tour, that's in the other room, unfortunately. So I'd have to do a bit of a mobile job. That's just tomorrow's travelling gear. Don't worry. There's a bit more formal stuff in the other room. No, it's a good time. I think Monday night is maybe where the peak excitement is because we're all kind of there. Me and Jake are driving down Monday afternoon. Tom, you're joining us later in the evening, but that's where the hopes are still high. Even though I've just said mine are quite low, relatively speaking, but they could get lower come 5:40 on the Tuesday if Salvador Ziggy is out the back of the telly, for example. So this is when all the expectations are still there. We still have our dreams. We still have our hope. So this is the best time to be alive. And my God, hopefully, not Ash, please, no.
No. He's at it again.
No. Yeah. I mean, I've just seen that Lee P has said, I live in Cheltenham, chaps, not raining currently. So that is completely at odds with what you heard about from Ed Quigley.
Your Stratford's not far away and they're having an inspection, aren't they? So it's,
I don't know.
I think it's very
what to believe. Yeah. I mean, I mean, after all the Sergino contradictions of the last week, I don't know what to believe anymore.
That was interesting last night.
Bully is in massive form, says Anthony McCarthy. I hope he means massive in terms of personality and not in terms of the way I look size-wise. What do we think?
I know where my money is, Bully.
Oh, I love it. Right, gents, we've been on for a bit, so let's move on, shall we, to the opening race of the day on the opening afternoon at the Cheltenham Festival. It is, of course, the Supreme Novices Hurdle. We heard that Ballyburn this morning is definitely going to be directed to the Gallagher Novices Hurdle instead of going to the Supreme, which leaves Willie Mullins still with the market leader, or at least I suppose they're joint favourites now, aren't they? Mystical Power and Tully Hill, both for the Classuton Maestro. And he's also got Mr. Jiff in there. And he's also got Asian Master. And he's also got Super Sunday. So Willie Mullins also with Gold Dancer, a huge hand in the opening contest. And I think he'll be hoping to land it, I'm sure. Nicky Henderson's had a very good record in the last sort of 10 years in the race. I think he's won it 4 times. He fields Jericho de Repene. But as we all know, a little bit out of form in terms of his string. And of course, my tears were very much on show this morning as I saw Favour and Fortune declared for the race, because I just cannot understand why he's not going to I love Alan King. He's one of my favourite trainers, Alan King. But the thing he said all along about Favour and Fortune is he needs good ground to be at his best. And like, he's so much more likely to get good ground later in the week. I just don't get it. Off a mark 138. I mean, to be honest, he's not going to win the Supreme, in my opinion. He's not good enough. So I don't know. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, that is just a gripe I have about one of my Ante-Post selections, which has gone down the toilet. Dan, this comes to you. What do you make of the opening race this year?
Competitive. Obviously, with Ballyburn not being in it, it makes it a very interesting opening event. I've really struggled with this race, to be honest. Like, I can see why people would like Tully Hill, because his run style will suit, the soft ground will suit. I can see that. I would generally prefer Mystical Power as a proposition, but the first time Hood puts me off, as does the fact that he's going to be ridden out the back probably, and his jumping can lack fluency. Whether that just puts him on the back foot too much, I'm not so sure. Will he be in a position to use that turn of foot come the end of the race, which I undoubtedly think he has over Tully Hill? I'm not sure. Slade Steele will run a good race. Like, he would be in every place spot I do. I just don't think he'll win over 2 miles. I'm not quite sure he's quite up to that class and able to win over 2 miles. I think he'll win the Grade 1, maybe at Aintree over 2.5, if the likes of Ballyburn don't run there. Obviously, they won it with Irish Point. Rob Core did last year. I generally think this is an incredibly difficult race. If the ground was better, I think Teller the Name would actually have quite a good chance. I really like Teller the Name as a horse, and Ben Pauling is just conquering everything at the minute. It's one of those races where a lot of people will come on and say, I have a strong opinion, even when they don't. I generally don't on this race. Like, I can look through a few of these. I like them, but I almost can't see them winning a Supreme. Something has to, but I really just can't nail it down at the minute. I really am struggling.
Yeah, I think it is a very tricky race this year. I've got to agree with that. And I'm sure everyone really would agree. And I also agree with you, Dan, on the fact that Mystical Power needs to brush up his jumping. I think if he runs like he did at Punchestown, jumps like he did at Punchestown, he was so languid and heavy in the air, I think he won't be winning anything. But maybe, I'm sure they've scored him a lot since, and he's got that hood on. Maybe it'll help a little bit. A few comments on the side here. Sean O'Connor says Jericho each way. I like that, Sean. I'm a big fan of the horse too. James Phelps saying thoughts on Mr. Giff. We'll come to that in just a second. And Gary agrees with me about the fact that Favour and Fortune should be in the county. Jake, what do you make of the race? Obviously, 2 Willie Mullins horses at the top of the market.
Yeah, so obviously for me, I've said on the podcast I really like Tully Hill. As Dan has mentioned, he's got his ground now. Ballyburn's obviously not running. That's obviously a massive help. I think everything is in his favour to run a massive race. There's always been some support for him today. He's into 3-1, across the board. I think I see him going off clear favourite for this race. I think that's almost guaranteed now, to be honest. I can't see much that would change that. And yeah, I'm with him. I'm definitely would have him on side. The other horse I do really want to give a strong mention to, though, is the one that had been banded around in the chat a few times here, is Mr. Giff. I think that he really does have a big chance. Like, I know people will look at him and he's, ran once in Ireland in a Limerick Maiden, which was an absolute egg and spoon race. Any of these horses should be winning that the way he did. But the things that I really like about him is, one, he's actually really experienced already. He had, I think it's 12 flat races he had in France, and then he's also running 2 hurdles in France. So he's got the 3 hurdles and all those flat race experience, already on side. And then secondly, the fact that he just jumped so beautifully at Limerick, like he was really making lengths every hurdle. And again, I know he's doing that against horses that are far inferior to these, and he's got to step up, obviously. But again, a horse who will enjoy soft ground, I think he has a really good each way chance. Looking at the boards right now, I think it's 12-14-1. If you can get him 14, perhaps 4 places, that would be a really good bet in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that, to be honest. He's actually the one I backed after Ballyburn was kind of announced to go to Gallagher. I actually backed Mr. Giff at 16s, just thinking he might be just a bit of a shortener if the race cut up a bit. Yeah, really like him. Really like that run at Limerick. Worth noting, it isn't a first-time hood. He wore it several times in France, so that's a bit deceptive. So that wouldn't be as big as an off-put to me as it would, say, being on Mystical Power, for example. So completely see that. He'll love the ground. Just interesting whether they go forward with him, because obviously Tully Hill's there. Be interesting to see what they do tactically, but that's just one of those incomprehensibles we have with Willie Mullins having 4 or 5. So, but do like the horse. Think he's interesting.
I'd imagine if Mr. Giff makes it, then they probably want, to make him at a strong pace so that Tully Hill can just have something to aim at. But if Tully Hill goes out in front, then I think Mr. Giff's just there to run on his merits, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think between those two horses, you've got some really good chances. The other horse for money today, actually, Tom, is Favour and Fortune. He's into about 20 places.
Is he actually? Bloody hell. I can't have him shorter than tell a name. No way.
The whole thing is a farce. I mean, it's a total farce. Like, I love the horse, and you know how much I love the horse, but he's not good enough to win a Supreme Novices. He's just not. He might sneak a place if a few of the principals don't fire, but he's not good enough to win. Whereas I think off a mark of 138, he would easily have a handicap in him. That's just.
I think this is probably the reason why, though. Obviously, with fun winning that Grade 3 race, just boosting form.
But I mean, you had Mirazor West in that race, who's a complete loon and acted like a loon, and he's clearly not the horse that they think he is because he's too mad. Just looking at a couple of the comments here, Luke Carr says he's pretty clueless on the Supreme Arkle this year, one of the first years. I agree, it's very tough. Jericho each way for Sean O'Connor. Andrew Blair White, no, you can't have thoughts on Palamon from Dan Overall.
Sake, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of shouts here for Ben Paulings, as you said, each way. And Slade Steele each way too. I think that's probably each way better than nothing, to be honest.
Slade Steele is just literally in the pocket 2.0 for me. Like, I fancied him for the Ballymore, the longer race. He wasn't declared all morning. Then suddenly Rachel pops up 2 minutes before the end of declarations, and then suddenly he's in the Supreme. I think it's a shame he's not going 2.5, but as Dan says, hopefully he goes 2.5 at Aintree, and then we can see what he's really about. But as Dan said, I can see him running well. I just can't see him being good enough to win it.
He was 7-1 earlier, in like each way. That was just a very solid bet if you were that way inclined. But now he's 5s. It makes a bit less appeal, but he'll be there or thereabouts. One will just be too quick.
Before we move on to the Arkle then, lads, I just want a quick word on a horse you've not actually mentioned, and the only horse this season to have beaten Ballyburn, that's Firefox. Look, if he returns to his best, he'd probably arguably be the one to beat on form, wouldn't he, Dan?
You'd be taking a very optimistic view of the Ballyburn form earlier in the season. Obviously, they've clearly held him in very high regard. I like him as a horse. He's one of my horses I was really keen on this season. I thought he'd end up being a bit of a stayer. He showed a surprising amount of speed. Can see why people would like him. Obviously, people will latch on to that Ballyburn form. You do have to forgive, obviously, the run at Nace, in which there were excuses, but can see it. It's one of those races where we've gone through, 7, 8, 9, and we can make a realistic case for all of them. He'd be short enough in my book compared to the likes of Mystical Power and Tully Hill, coming on the back of a good performance. And I was trained by a trainer more known for this race, in my opinion. If was he 92 currently, that wouldn't be enough to convince me at the minute.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Let's move on to the Arkle then, shall we? The second race on the opening day, and one of the most open Arkles in recent years, that's for sure. I looked at the market earlier in the week, and we had Gaelic Warrior and Il Était Tom as joint favourites, and I just could not believe my eyes. Like, I don't understand how either of those horses could be favourite for a race like the Arkle. Gaelic Warrior, I'd have 5 to 10 pounds going below, going left, and at Cheltenham. And Il Était Tom has run at Cheltenham twice and run pretty poorly both times. And he's quite a small, petite horse in terms of stature. I think he'll be found out in the Arkle, I have to say. You've got Founder 50 horses up of the market as well now. Hunter's Yarn, best price 6 to 1. Quilixios, JPR1, My Mate Mozzie, Master Chewy, Matata, and Authorized Speed. They are the rest of the runners. So a very tricky race, as is the first race. Jake, come to you first on this one. How do you kind of sum it up?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been saying that it's a bad renewal of the Arkle, and I don't really agree with that. I don't think it's a bad renewal. I just think it's a very open and there's no superstar that we can see right now. I've seen people saying that 2019 Duke of Geneva's year is similar to this, and that was just a god awful Arkle compared to this. So look, I think it's a decent race. Obviously, it is wide open, like the Supreme. You can make a case for most of these. You've got the odds to back it up. 3 to 1 the field, 7 to 2 the field. Like, that says all you need to know, doesn't it, about a Grade 1? So yeah, I can make cases for most. I think for me, the only potential superstar in the race is Gaelic Warrior, and I think I will just take the chance that he can put in a performance that suggests that. I know you've got the problem about you jumping right and whatever, but I really think that he can just put them to the sword going down the hill and then just fly up it and, potentially maybe being run down late. But I think he really will put in a good performance. I think it speaks volumes that they've actually gone to the Arkle with him. They could have just gone for the easy route for the tournaments. They could have just skipped it altogether and gone to Fairy House. They've decided to pitch him in the Arkle. I would give him a chance. I know it's one of those divisive horses that, loads of people are going to be either really for or either against, but he's the one for me. Of the remainder, I thought obviously Hunter's Yarn was probably the one I was going to fall on if Gaelic Warrior didn't go. So you'd have to give a big shout to him. He's kind of like the one that's like Gaelic Warrior. He hasn't really got the form that ties in with the rest of them. So, he's a bit of an unknown quantity compared to the rest. But yeah, it'll be between those two for me. And I think Gaelic Warrior, surely on homework, would be, by the pick of Paul Townend, would be the one that they would fancy.
I've got a few comments here about Gaelic Warrior. Actually, Lee P says Gaelic Warrior won't come off the bridle. Aaron Rush says even £5 worse off, Gaelic Warrior still wins this race. So quite a bit of confidence there. 11 MP White says Gaelic Warrior best horse, but Hunter's Yarn the only one who looks like he may have the ability to prove at this level. And then Kerry says Gaelic Warrior is a place lay. Jack says Gaelic Warrior on the bridle. So a few differing opinions.
There you go.
It's easy as that. I have to say, Jake, look, I respect your breadth of knowledge and your expertise enormously, and arguably more than anyone else in the game.
Here comes the butt.
But I just remember we were all at the DRF to see Gaelic Warrior in that Irish Arkle. Sorry, not the Arkle, but against Factor File. And I remember turning around after the race and I think I said to someone, if anyone could possibly back Gaelic Warrior for a Cheltenham race after that, they are straight off to the loony bin.
I'm off them.
but given it's you, Jake, given it's you, I will forgive.
No, it's not a strong fancy. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not here saying this is the nap of the day or anything like that. It's just I want to take a chance at this price of 7-2 that he is, that he could just be completely better than all these horses. I'm not saying for a minute that he's a really strong fancy.
I think going right-handed, I'd have him absolutely the best of horses. Yeah, and look, I hope he runs well for you, and fingers crossed he produces his best, because it'd be great to see him at his best. That's for sure. Dan, what do you think about the race?
Oh, another one where you're just like, holy Lord. No, this is not an easy start. The Tuesday's generally a day you can get off to a decent start, I think, and then you just you may be treading water. If you get off to a good start in the first two races, you're going to have a good week, I'd say. I'd be very interested to see how they ride Gaelic Warrior, because there is an abundance of pace angles in this. Like Matata has only got one way of going, and Calixios will go forward. Founder 50 will be there. Master Chewy won't be far away. So there's plenty of pace angles. Will they try and restrain him, or will they just let him bowl along? I think it's very interesting. Well, the hood going on would maybe suggest they'll try and ride him with a bit more restraint than usual. But that will be a very interesting tactical angle, because that would probably determine a lot of how this race pans out. A strong base would also bring the likes of my mate Mozzie from off the pace, but I don't think he's quite good enough. I don't think he really wants to get up that hill in a strongly run race either. Hunter's Yarn, I could see maybe being a horse like that, but I have queries about his jumping, especially that second last. I can see him having a problem there. No, a solid horse for me is Calixios, and I know he's probably maybe a bit unfashionable because he's a 7-year-old, and obviously he's been a bit absent since his Triumph Hurdle win, but undoubtedly a very class horse. Loved what he did at Nace when he beat Safarur. Mr. Policeman was a distance back in third that day. Jumped really well. Again, he was another potential forward goer, which is a concern, but with him, he's going to get a bit further. He's improved every start. Henry de Bromhead will have him peaked for this race. He knows what it takes to win an Arkle. I thought he was the most solid each-way option of those in around that price. But again, it wouldn't be a bullish shout.
Okay. Before we move on, I should comment on Hunter's Yarn, really, because he's one of my biggest Ante-Post plays of the Cheltenham Festival. And I've been a fan of his for ages. And I suppose in a way I've got sort of lucky, because I think some of the more fancied horses in the lead up to this race have been disappointing. Like Marine Nationale obviously is out of the race. But at the same time, I've always been a fan of Hunter's Yarn. I would have liked potentially another run before this, just to see what he was made of against better opposition, and maybe to test his jumping. Because as you say, Dan, he does have his jumping frailties. That said, having fallen on first chase start and having hit the second last very hard last time, I think generally in the main, he actually jumps pretty well. He is prone to a mistake, but his general jumping is pretty good. So I'm hoping that he can put it all together and jump well. I think the engine's there. I think he's got a good enough engine to be bang there at the finish of the race. So fingers crossed he doesn't make a blemish. And maybe on the back of those two runs, he's had enough experience now. But that would be a slight concern for me. But I'm happy with the Ante-Post position, that's for sure. Just looking at some of the comments here. 12 fences to jump for a horse that jumps to his right is a huge disadvantage, says Gary Ryan. Well, I think if he does jump massively to his right, then he's going to be in trouble. So he's going to have to try and cut that out, isn't he?
He's found a 50s problem as well. There's a couple in there.
Yeah. Trevor Clark says, Master Chewy, sit back and pick up the pieces each way for him. Jack Garrison. Yeah.
We had a passionate debate over dinner at the DRF where I was winding mainly Andrew up about whether Master Chewy could win an Arkle. And it went on for about 15 minutes, and it is recorded on my phone with the worst audio you ever see. And now there's actually a movement that he could win. I didn't think we'd actually get to this point, but I love it. It's superb.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Nigel Twiston-Davie is going to have 2 novice chase winners at the festival. How good is racing?
You never would have thought it. Just reading another one. Jack Garrett says Gaelic jumping right is the most overused opinion in racing. Okay, fair enough. Jake Mann says fences have made Gaelic warriors straighter. Brian Kennedy, interesting comment from Brian, who says JPR1 is a good jumper, but does he have the skill and speed to beat the rest? Dan, do you think JPR1 is the best of the British in this race?
From what he did at Lingfield, he was very polished at Lingfield. That was a really all-round performance, and it gives you the impression that he will be able to cope with the speed this race is going to be run at. If he jumps like that, he has to have an each-way chance, because you will probably fairly struggle to see a better round of jumping from a novice chaser. But again, does he quite have the potential of some of these to be a real top class? I probably have my doubts, but if he jumps well in behind and there is a strong pace, he could come into it and definitely be in the free.
Okay, and Jake, before we move on, just wanted to get your thoughts on My Mate Mozzie. I've heard from a few people this week; they were very surprised. You know, the Grand Annual wasn't chosen as the target. I have my doubts about My Mate Mozzie being good enough to win a handicap 150. I have to say, I can see why they've gone this route. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when Marine came out, it was kind of writing on the wall, wasn't it, that they would just chance their arm at the Arkle. He would have had a good chance in the Grand Annual, but it wouldn't have been a gimme. Like, he was off, 150. You know, it's not exactly like, oh, he's absolutely thrown in and can win that Grand Annual easily. He was one of the most progressive, young novices in it, of course. But he'll have his chance here, as they all do. Would I see him being good enough? No, but we'll see.
Okay, good stuff. Final comment on this race. Jake Mann says Matata will take someone out. And do you know what? I can't agree more with that statement.
That's 3 or 4 that could do that.
That's not on chance, yeah.
Matata and Game Warrior at the first just go like that, and that's it.
Yeah, we'll go from having 10 runners to 4 after the first fence. That's a genuine possibility. It makes it such a good race to watch. But my God, if you really have a strong fancy or good position, you're going to be watching it like that. Like, it's going to be really, those first 2 fences, there'll be a strong pace on.
Yeah, you're absolutely bang on. Okay, guys, good stuff. Let's move on to the Ultima. It's the 3rd race on the card, the first handicap of the meeting, over 3 miles, 1 furlong. Meeting of the Waters is the favourite at the moment, has been recently acquired by JP McManus, and Willie Mullins and Mark Walsh team up with that one. The Goffer is next in for Jack Kennedy and Gordon Elliott. Then we've got Chianti Classico, a favourite here on the Jump Show. Stumptown for Keith Donoghue and Gavin Cromwell. Then Trelawn, Monbeg Genius. We've all been caught. Blah, blah, blah. Plenty of runners in this one. Dan, start with you on the Ultima. Always one of the most competitive races of the week. I have to say, having listened to a lot of these preview nights over the last 2 weeks or so, the vibes about Meeting of the Waters are pretty strong. That said, he's now at a price where I wouldn't be keen to touch a horse in a race like the Ultima. What do you think?
Well, yeah, the vibes have been strong, but he's also the 5th or 6th Gold Cup winner we've got going into next year, based on the previous circuit. It's a Broadway boy, Galloping de Champ, Fat de File, Meeting of the Waters. I might be forgetting a few others who have all been quoted as Gold Cup winners of the future. So it'll be some race next year. But I wouldn't be really interested. He's short enough. I have no reason to desert Chianti Classico like he's done. Obviously, we haven't seen him since we put him up on the show at 20-1. Very happy with the position. Just has a great profile for the race. Trelawn in there is interesting, but I could not touch him with a barge pole after what he did at Wetherby. Like, you'll never see a more awkward-looking horse in all your life. And generally speaking, horses stepping up to this kind of trip on their first attempt in Ultima have a very poor record. You generally want to see a horse with confirmed 3-mile form. And I get that he could improve for it. It looks like he'll improve for it, but having it as an unknown going into an Ultima isn't the best sign. So I couldn't have him on my mind. I'm a bit surprised to see he's nearly as short as Chianti Classico, because to me, Chianti Classico is the solid one in here. A few ones that are interesting, but generally speaking, this is one of the more predictable handicaps. Like, generally something from the first 5 or 6 of the betting wins it. Chianti Classico for me, I won't be having another bet, and I'm hoping he'll get the job done for me and Jake.
Yeah, okay, Jake, before I get your opinion, which I know is very strong on Chianti Classico, I did want to just read out a couple of these comments because there's a lot about Lucinda Russell here. Brian Kennedy saying...
Don't worry, I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I know you're going to say it as well. Brian Kennedy says, surprised Lucinda Russell hasn't got Giovinco or Apple away here. Chianti Classico of Cobden Rides wins. Sean O'Connor, Giovinco should have gone here. Trevor Clark says no Giovinco, stunned, and Brian Kennedy agrees with Sean O'Connor. So there's a lot about, and there's another one here. Jacob Tarr says Lucinda Russell said Giovinco's the best handicap horse, but owner's adamant about going for a grade 1. So there you go, Jake. Loads on that. I know you've got your own opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was very interesting watching the decks come in this morning. You see there's 23 in the Ultima all morning, so there was never a point where Apple away wouldn't have got a run. For some reason, 2 minutes before declarations close, Apple away gets put into the national hunt chase, like they can't count. And then secondly, they don't put Giovinco in the Ultima as a result. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, Giovinco would have had such a good chance here off his mark. And instead, he's going to run around in a grade 1 and be, what, like a 25-1 poke? And maybe try and place like that. That would be at best. I don't understand it at all. Like, I get that they're going for the grade 1, but Jesus Christ, do you not want to try and win a Cheltenham handicap first? Like, didn't do Corrick Rambler.
They're bored of it.
Harm, did it.
They've done it too many
literally.
times. Don't interest them anymore. Go for another race.
Jesus, I just don't understand it at all. But yeah, unfortunately, no Giovinco. I put him up non-run and no bet, so it's not the end of the world, but just was very annoying because he would have had a good chance. But yeah, I don't think I have too much more to say about Chianti Classico. Obviously, he's got his ground now. The soft ground's going to suit him perfectly. David Bass was always adamant that he was going to ride Chianti Classico. There was never a point where Trelawney was in his decision making, as far as I understand. So to me, that screams that Chianti is definitely the number one. I think the money for Trelawney is basically because Carrier Cobden's been booked up, isn't it? And Ante-Post, they wouldn't have taken a hiding on him because they would have priced him quite defensively, and a lot of people didn't know if he was turning up or not. So I think all the money's just come today because it's like a new piece of information. All Cobden's on. He's riding and running in this race. Let's just get on. So yeah, I'd be happy to take him on, as Dan said, with the way that he acted at Wetherby. It's definitely not a good sign. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else in here. Obviously, the Goffer has strong claims based on last year's run. If you're a massive fan of last year's form, then he's the one to take from that. I wouldn't say there's a lot of improvement to come from him. Like, if he ran the same type of race you'd be trying to expect him to win by running the similar type of race, maybe a little bit better, but obviously only £2 lowers. The horse actually kind of has come into my thinking a little bit since just looking at the decks, and not seeing Giovinco in there. Potentially as Victorino for the Venetia Williams. I thought that the way that he ran at Ascot last time was just like, you could tell he wasn't going to win from miles out. Like, he just was not interested that day. So I think he's still on a decent mark. He finished obviously off that race quite well. I'm not saying he's a massive chance or anything, but around 18-1 when you've got 6 places on offer with most bookies, like, I think he could potentially be one that I'm looking at to cover alongside Chianti Classico, because I probably will have an extra bet just with the 6 places. I think it's sometimes worth having that extra bit of cover. But yeah, Chianti Classico is the one that I'm really excited for on Tuesday.
Yeah, both British horses you mentioned there, Jake, and a couple of comments here on the stats. 11 MP White says, no Irish winner of this since 2006. Must be a reason why. One of Kim's for me, not sure which, maybe Chianti. Jack Carrot says, don't know how anyone can back an Irish horse in this race with the stats. And Dan, I know you're a stats man. Is a fairly strong trend in this race, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I think a lot of that has to do with a couple of things. One, a lot of the trainers keep their best handicapped horses for a test like this for the Irish National, or they're lower enough in the weights they can go for a Kim Muir. So there are, again, you have to look at the context behind the stats. And obviously, Meeting of the Waters, we know, would have been the Kim Muir horse for Patrick, because he's desperate to get the treble up of all the amateur races he can win. And obviously the Paddy Power win put that plan to the sword, really. But if they thought he was going to be well handicapped enough to win a Kim Muir, £2 above the ceiling wouldn't exactly put you off. And again, obviously a lot of probably over-the-top talk about what his long-term potential is. But the Goffer is obviously going to be popular, and he would be another one who would just be in play spots for me, because you kind of know he's been laid out for the race, finished 4th in it last year. People are going to probably say that, he's a stronger horse than last year, he'll get up the hill. But I don't get the argument that he hit the front too soon, because he was alongside Monbeg Genius, who was basically alongside when they turned for home, and Monbeg Genius obviously finished a length away. The Goffer finished 10 lengths away. So I'm not necessarily sure it's a case of wrong place, wrong time. I just don't think he's necessarily a stronger stayer of this kind of trip up the hill. But I think he'll be there or thereabouts. I think probably the Chianti Classico, the Goffer reverse forecast will be one I'm interested in.
Okay, good stuff. That agrees with what Kerry Marriott says. He says top 3 in the betting in the combination TriCast. So you've got one on side there, Dan. Racing Willow, a friend of the channel, says Eldorado Allen, banker for a place. And we've also got a comment here, which I have to say I think is totally outrageous, from Billy McNamara, who says the Crufts Grand Final is live now on Channel 4. I reckon the long-haired schnauzer will beat the Code Blue Terrier, which, strangely enough, has more than a passing resemblance to me.
Wow.
Not so sure about that one, Billy. To be fair, though,
I
I'm
some
looking
research on that one.
quite rugged with the old beard at the moment.
Can we get some odds on that grand final, please? We'll bet in play.
That's who cares about Cheltenham? Crufts is on. I haven't given my opinion on the race. I don't really have a strong view actually this year. The only horse I'm probably going to have a dabble each way on actually is one of the youngest in the race, and unfortunately, again, it's Nicky Henderson's horse. But Excello is a horse I really, really like for the future. I think he's going to be a very good horse in a couple of years' time. It might come a bit soon for him this test, but he's 20-1, and he beat Solo with ease at Ascot 2 starts ago. I never thought he was really travelling particularly well at Cheltenham last time out. He steps up in trip now. He's dropped £2. I think he'll travel into the race nicely. He wants a strong pace, and he'll do for me a bit decent price. And of course, he's British trained too, so Excello for me in the Ultima wouldn't be the strongest of fancies. Right, lads. I think it's time to move on to the feature of the afternoon on day one, which of course is, well, I know, bereft of the best hurdler in the country. So that is a shame. Obviously, Constitution Hill not going for the race, but State Man is in it. It's a very short price. Irish Point has been declared for the contest. I think you'd be better off going for the 3-mile race, to be honest. Iberico Lord, having won 2 very competitive handicap hurdles so far this term, leaves on a mark of 143. Which is still over £20 beneath State Man, so he's going to have to find another chunk of improvement. Then we got Not So Sleepy, Zarek the Brave, Lucia, Nemean Lion, and Colonel Mustard to fill out the runners in this year's champion hurdle. Dan, for me, it's one of the more underwhelming champion hurdles in recent history. Obviously, it's a shame we haven't Constitution Hill. That said, State Man deserves a chance to show what he can do.
He does. I'd love to see him win a champion hurdle, and he probably will do. He's a horse that deserves it. He's ultra consistent, really likable, is tactically versatile. Just everything you love in a reliable, consistent horse will probably be around the scene for the next 2-3 years, all being well. I'd like to see him have his day, and he deserves it. Be a good race for second, I think. There's a few in here, maybe good race for third if Irish Point is up to this. But the fact that he's not going to stay his hurdle is a travesty, by the way. Absolute travesty.
I agree.
But there you go. I have no real betting opinion on this race. I don't really want to have a bet. I would just hopefully enjoy State Man win and clap him in because he deserves it. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. Before I get to you, Jake, I'll just throw in my 2 cents, which isn't particularly exciting, as is the case as usually. But I think if you're looking at an each-way play, I actually think you could do worse than the Nemean Lion.
I agree with that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's very versatile ground-wise. He's definitely improving. I thought his performance to beat Colonel Mustard in the Kingwell last time in Wincanton was a really good effort, and he's very solid. He's very dependable. He's very straightforward, and it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world for him to squeak a place. That's for sure. I'd have him over a horse like Not So Sleepy, and he's £8 higher than Iberico Lord off level weight. So you do the math. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, look, let's not waste anyone's time. State Man should win. Let's be honest. That's obviously very clear. Irish Point is the one that should finish in second. It'd be very interesting to see how he's ridden, how he runs. If he comes second, obviously the connections will be delighted with that. And I do think that Iberico Lord is interesting in terms of the fact that he's stepping into graded company. I hope that he actually runs quite well, and then maybe next season we can see him as an open company graded hurdler because, God, we need more horses like that, don't we, in the UK for Saturday racing, throughout the winter. So if he could run well, maybe get third or fourth, and then progress next season, that would be great. But yeah, no big opinion. State Man should win.
State Man should win. All three of us agree. Hardly surprising given that he's 11-4 on. Okay, on to the 410, which is the Mayor's Hurdle, the Grade 1 over 2 miles 4 furlongs, and another odds-on favourite here, another one for Willie Mullins, Lossiemouth. Has impressed many, I think, with her victory last time out at Cheltenham that came in the International. Ashrow Diamond next in the market. Love Envoy, Marie's Rock, Tell Me Something Girl, Echoes in Rain, Gala Marceau, Langtree Lady, You Wear It Well, Hispanic Moon, and Theatre Glory are all taking on the favourite Lossiemouth. Jake, for you, is she a banker or is she vulnerable?
I think she's obviously got a really good chance at, if you can't be priced like that at Cheltenham Festival, if you don't have an amazing chance. For me, I'm not saying she can't stay. I'm not saying she won't stay. I'm just going to take her on the fact that she hasn't proven she can stay. And it's nothing, against the horse. I think she's really good, but you're betting against an odds-on shot. Things can happen in this mare's hurdle. Obviously, we have like the likes of Benny Dedew, and one Benny Dedew won it. I can't remember who the odds-on shot she beat that year was, but there was an odds-on shot that year as well, and she beat her. So look, funny things can happen in this race, and I'm not going too far away. I just really like Ashra Diamond. She's a horse that I've always really been a big fan of. It's a shame she's never actually been to Cheltenham before. She missed the Mares' Novice last year, which is a bit annoying. But she comes in here as a bit of an unknown quantity as a result of that, compared to the rest of them. She's twice travelled over to England, won both times. Obviously, the Aintree Mares Bumper, Grade 2, and then at Doncaster in January, where she was a really, really fluent winner of that Grade 2 hurdle. Like, she just jumps beautifully the whole way around. I think the soft ground is right up her street. She'll obviously stay. We know she stays 2.5 miles. There's no issues there at all. She was a good winner of that Ferry House Grade 1 at the end of last season, and that was on pretty testing ground on the day. It was quite heavy rain around Ferry House, so don't think she's got an absolute. There's no problems there at all. And I'm going to be playing her actually 1 point win on just the normal win market, but also if the price holds, which I probably don't think it will, but in the betting without Lossiemouth right now, you can get 2-1 about Ashra Diamond, and I just think that's a really nice price. Yeah,
really.
Bet Victor a 2-1 without the Fav, which I think if you've got a Bet Victor account, then go and get on, because I don't think
she's 9-2. Then it's 14-1 the rest. How is that possible?
Yeah,
that seems a bit of a rig. She should be like 6-5 on those odds, but there you go. Weird. What do you think about the hood for her? What about the first time hood? I thought that was interesting. Maybe unnecessary.
Yeah, maybe unnecessary. Obviously, Patrick being on again is going to be something that puts people off, but I think 5-1 is a fair enough price. I actually don't mind Patrick over hurdles. I think I'd much rather back him over hurdles than over fences, especially in these Grade 1s. Obviously, the National Hunt Chase is a different kettle of fish, but yeah, no, I think she's got a really good chance. I think the price is fair for what she's achieved, and the potential that she could be a very good horse. The potential that Lossiemouth might not stay, albeit she probably will. She's just the each way bet to nothing for me technically, but I'll probably just play it win only just so I don't lose my accounts.
Okay, got a few comments here. We have one from Jake Mann, who says Lossie wins on the Billy Idol. Brian Kennedy, Lossiemouth might nap the whole festival. Trip is a concern, but she's clear from the rest of these. Lossiemouth to lap them, says Jack Garrett. Lossiemouth banker at the meeting. Banker at the meeting.
A lot of love for Lossie.
Yeah, a lot of love. Anso says Lossiemouth nap at the meeting. Love Envoy, each way a great bet for me, says Chris Kirby. Can see that. I have to say, the way I'm going to play this race, I'm keen to take on Lossiemouth too, actually, with Ashra Diamond for exactly the same reasons that Jake's just put forward. The fact that she definitely stays the trip. Lossiemouth can be quite keen. But I have to say that I'm going to have an each way bet in this race, and it's going to be on You Wear It Well for Jamie Snowden, because I think she's just overpriced, having won the Mares' Novice last year. And you might look at her form and think, oh, she ran no sort of race last time. I have to say, I think now that we learned a little bit more about her, I just don't think she really likes really heavy ground. Twice she's running really heavy ground so far this season at Sandown and at Haydock, and she's been well beaten both times. She obviously won the Mares' Novice Hurdle on soft ground last year at Cheltenham, but it was very deep at both Sandown and Haydock, and she just didn't fire. On her other runs so far this term, I think she's absolutely there with a shout of finishing placed. And obviously this has been her target. She's been taken out of 5 engagements so far this season due to the ground not being right for her and due to abandonments too. So I think she's a definite play each way for Jamie Snowden, and she could easily run well. Dan, what do you make of the race?
Tell you what, how good's my 25-1 Gala Marceau looking now? I've got 3 points of value. I am a shark. I've been sitting on that slip for 49 weeks. Fuck's sake. And she's 22-1. What could have been?
I wonder how much interest you could have made off that money if you kept it in a bank account.
Yeah, that whole 20 quid. What I could have done with it. Yeah, what a life I could have led in that time. No, look, is Lossiemouth going to stay is the question basically of the preview circuit. I've come around to the fact that I think she will. I think she's a class above these. People will get a point to the fact she was keen, especially in the Triumph, but I think people forget that Triumph was incredibly falsely run. They went very strongly for 5 or 6 furlongs, and Jupiter Digit decided didn't want to be a racehorse anymore. And then they all kind of clustered up, and it became a real speed test at the end. The front three in that race had the fastest finishing sectionals of any horse across the whole Cheltenham Festival. That shows you what a relative test of speed it become. And because they were so slow, that's why she got keen. In a truly run race, she settles beautifully. I have no problems about that. The only issue would be if it turns into a real bog, but based on the forecast, it probably won't do. So yeah, I think Lossie will win. I'm like you guys have mentioned, there's a few different angles you can play into this race, and I'm almost reluctant to do so because I think you can almost overload and overcomplicate this race and have unnecessary bets. So I think this will just be a race where I hope Lossie Mouth wins and pray to God Gala somehow just comes back and becomes a racehorse again after whatever I just saw last time out, because that was woeful. So I'll be having a secret cheer for Gala Marceau and in hope that 25-1 slips can somehow cop. It won't.
You won't be topping up on the day then?
No. I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'll see her in France maybe for a race. That's where she thrives. But yeah, I just hope Lossie Mouth wins because hopefully then we get her campaigned as a champion hurdle horse next season.
Yeah, that would be great to see. Actually, interesting enough that you said that, Dan, because Brian Kennedy has commented saying, if you guys are the owners of Lossie Mouth, would you have sent her to the champion hurdle instead? I honestly think they should have been. She'd have been neck and neck with State Man and arguably won the champion hurdle. I think if I'd owned the horse, I probably would have done, because I think she'll be a much better performer over 2 miles than 2.5. That said, I don't think she beat State Man either. Jake, what do you think of that?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? If she'd already ran over 2.5 miles, it'd be an absolute no-brainer. Makes it a bit more complicated the fact she hasn't, but I can completely see why, as an owner of a racehorse, that you just want to go to the race where you can have the best chance of winning. Unlike the Giovinco owners, apparently.
The sore point.
We won't hear the end of this one. Lord above. Please let Chianti win so we don't have to hear Giovinco propaganda for the next
Yeah.
Billy McNamara, good point made. Has someone bought Willie a lot of hoods for his birthday? He's got 6 in first-time hoods on Tuesday, although Dan, of course, he did to allude to the fact that Mr. Jiff wore a hood in France. It's quite a lot of additional hoods, isn't it? I mean,
he's only ever had 6 Grade 1 horses running first-time hoods in the last 10 years, and he's got 4 or so on day one. So
he's accidentally declared them in hoods where it's supposed to be, the hood they take off before the start of the race. They just wear it around the paddock. That's what it looks like.
You're going to get confused when they get to the off and they're all still there.
Yeah, they're like, what's this going on?
Okay, that's good stuff. Let's move on, shall we, to the Boodles. And any number in this race could be well handicapped off their marks they've been given. Lark in the Morning off 122 at the top of the market, then Milantino off 126, Batman Girac, Liari and Darwi, Miss Mansour, Nara, Ose Parti, Golfang, Palamon, etc., etc. Jake, start with you on the Boodles.
Yeah, sorry, just before I start, if everyone who's watching the stream right now could just give a like on the stream, that would really help us out. We're currently, I think there's only 19 likes, but we've got 175 of you in here. So if you guys could hit that like button, that'd be great. Helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Just got to sneak it in there. Boodles, again, heartbreak this morning. Cossack Jack not declared when all the other Joseph horses were. Look, I think there was a number of reasons, but the main one probably was that it ended up going soft ground, which obviously would have ruined his chances anyway. He was a horse that connections very much think want better ground. If it was the good to soft like it was yesterday, then that would have been perfect. But obviously 7 mils overnight, turning it from good to soft probably doesn't say much about how good to soft it was. It probably was on the soft side anyway, wasn't it? If that little rain can change it. So obviously with the extra rain today, there's no chance that he would have been having his ground. So we'll move on. Unfortunate with that one. Most years it would be good to soft, wouldn't it, on the first day? So is what it is. I won't go too far in detail because I know Dan is very keen on this one, but the one I was going to have as a backup there either way, and will definitely be in the 4 of my picture now, is Ose Partir. Comes from the exact same form line as Cossack Jack over Christmas. I think that Grade 2 that was run over Christmas, the juvenile hurdle, because it was so falsely run and because there was a load of Boodle types in there, I think it's a strong piece of form. And if you're looking at a horse that's going to be better off from, at the weights with a lot of horses from that race going into the Boodles, then you've got to be keeping them on side, in my opinion. And Ose Partir is obviously the main one of that. Ricador rides, which I don't mind. I think he's pretty decent. He won on Jevry in a national not that long ago. So he can rise to the big occasion. I think that Rosie Party has been absolutely laid out. His SPs on his last 2 runs were 80 to 1 and 100 to 1. And now he's obviously like 14s for this. So you can see where connections are thinking. Away from that, I think that Eagle Fang is probably another one that I may end up, doubling him up with, just because it's from that 4-year-old Nace form. I think that he was a very good winner of it. I think that he's fairly treated off his mark. And again, he comes from that grade 2 over Christmas. So probably be those 2 for me. But I am yet to just have a proper deep dive just to make sure that's where I'm going to land. But yeah, they're the 2 I'm thinking of.
Okay. Jack Garrett says Eagle Fang. How can you ignore the Nace form? Gary Ryan, Carrier de Blaz, or Blaz, I should say, 33 to 1 each way. Already beaten in Darwin is £5 better off. Jake Mann, Andrew Blair White's Palamon Army. Didn't want to say that.
And the man
Tom
himself
Leach
is there as well. Yep, superb.
Yeah. Well, what a shock. Tom Leach says Bright Legend 33s each way and Nara 14s each way. Either Boodles. I assume that means I like the Boodles. And Gary Dorman says Callio's son this year's Jazzy Matty. No idea why I'm so confident.
Yeah, he's the second reserve, so he's going to need 2 to come out before. I don't know when they do the cutoff. Is it on the day or is it tomorrow? I don't know, but it's unlikely that I'd imagine 2 will come out before he needs them to. But if they did, I genuinely could see him running well. He is a bit of a Jazzy Matty type horse in that he's an absolute boat. But yeah, and they've been messing around with him, obviously, so you could see it, but I don't think he's going to get a run.
Okay, Dan, Osei Partir, and I have to say, unfortunately, due to peer pressure, I'm going to have to get your thoughts on Palamon as well.
I'm in a privileged enough position to do a few podcasts talking about Cheltenham, and I've had to talk about this horse an ungodly amount, considering I really do not fancy him or care. I swear, if this horse wins, it will be the worst day I've ever had, because I will never hear the end of it. We'll never hear the end of it. It will just be purely insufferable. So please, if there is a God, don't let it happen. Please. I beg. I will forfeit all winners across the week to let Palamon not win this race. That's how much. Go on.
I would like to second that.
There we go. Yeah. I might see if I can lay him at 21 on the exchange or something, just for a massive liability, just out of spite. Really commit myself to this act. But yeah, he's really, really good form behind the Darwy. Yeah, with that length of distance behind is really literal. You can definitely take that literally. And then Darwy was pushed out all the way that day. God, I hope I never have to talk about this horse again. But to be honest, listening to Jake, he's basically just exact same opinion as me. Obviously, when we did the handicap weight reveal, I said went back to SA Partir as the one I was interested in. He was 33 to 1 then. It's been a steady sway of support in. He's now best price 14s. He's nearly single figures in places. He's just been laid out for the race. It's clear as day. I love the Martin Brazel comments like, hope he finishes in the first 5 or 6. That'd be good. I love that, like kind of under the radar, like, yeah, come on. We all know the score. Whereas everyone else is like, yeah, we've got a cracking chance. I love the kind of understated nature of it. He clearly looks like ready for this. He comes out good at the weights relative to some of those in the grade 2 based on the way he was ridden. You completely put a line for the DRF run because you look at Fast or Slow, you look at an Epic Song, look at where they finished at the DRF before going on to finish second in their respective races last year. It's basically inconsequential. Clearly a bit of a spin round review to this. I think he's got a really good chance. Yeah, and Eagles Fang I think he's got another one who's maybe he's underestimated in the market because of his connections aren't as high profile. But obviously he comes from that race that's provided so many winners. He'll love a strong pace. Looks a really strong stayer at the trip. Not maybe always necessarily extremely well handicapped, but those form lines you can't really ignore. So at 20 to 1, he'll be another play I have in the race. And those will be my 2 going into it.
Okay, good stuff, guys. I don't have a huge opinion on the race, again, other than the fact that one horse who I think is going to be a lot better than his mark in time is in Darwy off 134. I was mightily impressed with that effort last time, I have to say. Really heavily eased, as you mentioned, Dan. And I actually think if they'd chucked in Darwy in the Triumph hurdle, I don't think he would have been disgraced. So for me, off that 134 mark, he's going to be a massive player in Darwy in that race. Just seeing if we've got any other comments. Anto says, absolutely right, Palamon's a donkey. Good to see that.
Go on, Anto.
There's always a man I can rely on for a good opinion.
Correct. Okay, boys, one to go then. It's the 5:30. It's the National Hunt Challenge Cup Novices Chase. I won't do my usual rant about how much I hate the conditions of this race, and because this is supposed to be looking forward to the Cheltenham Festival day one, so I'm not going to go into how much I despise it. But let's talk about it in detail. Embassy Gardens is just about market leader at the moment, ahead of Corbett's Cross. Salvador Ziggy, Kilbeg King, Appleway, Henry's Friend, and Mr. Van Gogh. Just the 7 runners going to post for this, and yeah, not the most appetizing a contest by any stretch of the imagination. But that said, Dan, start with you on the race itself.
Well, obviously, I'm happy with the position on Salvador Ziggy. Obviously, 16-1 we're sitting on. He's into 5s, and you can't really be too unhappy with that. The race is cut up as it always does, and he has the kind of traditional solid profile. We always knew he was going to be vulnerable to maybe 1 or 2 who have a classier profile and could be a cut above, but we have those 2 in Embassy Gardens and Corbett's Cross. Both have first-time hoods, I believe, which would not be a good sign, I think, for either of them. I think it suggests they're going to ride them with a view to staying, so they're going to be anchored out the back. I hate the way Corbett's Cross jumps. He's not a horse I can warm to at all. I hate the way he ran out in the Albert Bartlett. There's just nothing I like about him to recommend betting him in this race at all. The one I would be concerned about is Embassy Gardens, because I think that he has shown he now can back up runs. But again, the fact they've gone first-time hood is probably related to the fact that they've said time and time again he got buzzed up in the Albert Bartlett last year and threw his chance away. But again, when you have those doubts about your horse's mentality going into a 3-mile 6 novice chase on soft ground, those have got to be concerns for me. Whereas obviously Salvador Ziggy, they know what they have. He's just a very likeable forest stayer. They'll ride him probably quite positively relative to those 2. He'll be there or thereabouts. The concern is the ground. He would need it as quick as possible, which is a concern. I won't be backing him at 5s. I'm just happy with the position I'm in. And to be honest, I think some of the British horses maybe are a bit overlooked in this. I think maybe not Kilbeg King, but I think Appleway is a horse I can see taking to this kind of race. She just kind of plucks away. I think she'll stay. I wouldn't have many concerns about her. It is a shame, Tom, as you say, the fact that some of these are here. They just shouldn't really be. This is a race I'd have first on the list of races to go. Like, we've got 3 novice chasers rated in excess of 150 running in this. And if you look at the Brown Advisory, Stay Away Faye and Broadway Boy are rated 150. Like, they just shouldn't be in a race of their own. It shouldn't be that way. But happy with Salvador Ziggy. Probably won't have another bet in the race. Danger, in my opinion, would be Embassy Gardens.
Okay, very well summed up, as always, from Dan overall. I'm just going to read a few of these comments out. Stevens99 says, Corbett's Cross is a poor jumper and a non-stayer. Underachieved since he won a 2-mile hurdle. See where you're coming from with both those points. Tom Leach, I'm on Kilbeg King, 14s each way. I can see the top 2 bombing out, especially Corbett's Cross. Jumps like something I won't mention on this stream. And then we got Jake Mann, who says, Embassy Gardens beat Sandor Clegane. Sandor Clegane beat 3-card Bragg by 20 lengths. Corbett's Cross only beat 3-card Bragg by 3 lengths. Racing maths. There you go.
Always
If it was as formulaic as that, we'd all be rich, wouldn't we? I enjoyed that. Do you know what? I have to say, and you're gonna, I know that you guys have made a habit really of kind of laughing me out of the room, which is completely fair enough. But I have to say, given the fact that we obviously sadly lost Mark Bradstock last week, and Sarah is fielding Mr. Van Gogh, I have to say, poignancy aside, I don't think he's without a squeak, this horse, because although he's got a fair bit to find on ratings, he's clearly improving significantly quickly. He won the Devon National, which was a race that did kind of fall apart in the end by 60 lengths last time. But this is the kind of horse that the Bradstock family have always done really well with, an improving chaser, an improving staying chaser, and first-time cheek pieces are put on him. So I think he might run well. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he's going to run well. And I also think Henry's Friend might run a good race too for Ben Pauling, as you said, Dan, earlier in the chat, that he's a trainer in really, really good form. And he beat Kilbeg King last time at Ascot, the Reynoldsdown. And like Mr. Van Gogh, he's also improving quickly. I do think, though, it's probably between some of the higher rated individuals. And to be honest, Dan, because I'm a nice chap, I'll be cheering you on with Salvador Ziggy.
Makes a change.
It does, actually, yeah. I thought it'd be nice for once. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is my nap of the day now. It really is. Embassy Gardens, I just think he wins. I really do. I'm happy to take on Corbett's Cross on all the reasons Dan has mentioned. Hate his jumping, stamina doubts. I think he's wearing a hood because they're worried he won't stay. I think Embassy Gardens wearing a hood because they think that he could end up being too keen for his own good. I don't think they have no concerns at all about him staying. It's just they don't want him to, over-egg the pudding too early in the race. So I think that's why they've got the hood on, which I can understand. I think that as long as he doesn't go over the top, I think that he is the best horse in the race. He's got some of the best form from this season over fences. He jumped beautifully. I think the only thing that really would be putting me off making a max bet type thing is that he obviously ran so bad in the Albert Bartlett last year. I think that's the only thing, but they've got excuses for that. They blame the start, the early burly hustle and bustle of the big field, and he's got 6 runners to go up against here, so no such concerns for me. I don't think they're going to go massively quick because obviously, if there's any more rain between now and then, it'll be soft, potentially going on heavy. So I don't think they're going to be going stupid. And I think Embassy Gardens will just love the conditions. I think he'll stay all the way up the hill. And he's the type of horse like Gaillard Du Mesnil last year. Even if Patrick gives him an absolute horrific ride, I think he could still win. So he's the one.
Don't bring me back to that race last year. Don't bring me back to that race last year.
Yeah. Literally one of the worst Cheltenham Festival winning rides there's ever been. But anyway, I digress. Embassy Gardens for me, I think he's absolutely bomb-proof. I think he'll run his race. Okay, if he gets beat by one better, then fair play. But I really don't see it. And Arkle away is the one that I would be really happy to take on. I know
you hate her.
Said it many.
You absolutely hate her.
I think she's a good horse, and I know this will probably piss a lot of people off because her owners seem to be absolutely everywhere, and especially in our comment sections. But I just think she is average. I don't think she is as good as people say she is. I'm not saying she's not a good horse. Obviously she is, but clearly she should be in the Ultima or Fairmark. I don't know what happened there. And yeah, I just don't see it being up to this level.
I think she should be over hurdles. To be honest, that's my opinion. I think she should be over hurdles.
Fair enough. Yeah.
A comment from Kerry Marriott who says, actually, I have to say, Kerry, you're preaching to the choir here because you said, poor race, bring back the 2.5 mile novice handicap chase. Quite bloody right.
Please.
Couldn't agree more. Yes.
Stop adding races back. Just remove races.
Get rid of the turners and get that 2.5 mile handicap.
We had the 2.5 mile handicap chase the other day. It was at Sandown. It was a great race. 8 runners. Really good race.
Right. Okay, lads. Before we finish this, I want a couple of things from you. Best bet on day one and a couple of horses to look out for the rest of the week as well. Jake, start with you on that.
Yeah, just said it. Nap of the day is Embassy Gardens in the last. Currently 15 to 8. I think you hopefully get 2 to 1 or that type of price on the day. Would be a big fan of that. Later in the week, I think that one that's really now top of my Ante-Post list really is Facile Vega and the Turners. Obviously, he didn't get declared for the Arkle. His only option left is the Turners, and I think he's going to be Willie's only runner. Maybe him and Sharjah if Sharjah goes. So look, he must have a good chance there. Taking on the Brits, obviously, I think all the Brits are going to end up in there now, aren't they? Based on the latest bits of information. So I would be all over Facile Vega for that. What have we got? Wednesday. Trying to remember who I've got now.
Too many good positions.
85 bets a day, and who am I in the best spot on?
Wednesday. To be fair, Wednesday's quite open. I think. That was it. The one that I really like is Delta Work in the cross country. I think that he's going to have his ground. Obviously the ground was drying. Obviously we've had more rain now, so it's pretty irrelevant. But the chase course, the cross country chase course stayed heavy the whole time. It barely even moved in the middle, so they can't be running on that. On anything near the ground that Galvin would need to be able to run, I'd imagine. So yeah, Delta Work in there for me. And then Friday would have been interesting if Sergino was out. Obviously, we've kind of learnt since that he's fine. But I still think Kaji's got a good chance. I think she is overlooked compared to what the others have achieved. She's beaten them all, and she's a bigger price than some of them. So yeah, I'd still be quite keen on Kaji's.
Great stuff, Jake. I'll nip in before Dan. I'm going to make it short and sweet. My best bet on day one is Hunter's Young, the Arkle. Got to go with him. Really stick with him. I'm going to go later in the week. I have to say, I think my best bet of the entire week, if he gets in, he's getting closer and closer, is Daily Present Nakim Muir. He's got, by my reckoning, he needs 4 to come out. He's 31 at the moment, but there are already 5 I think who are definitely going to come out. So he needs another 4 to come out. And I'm just hoping desperately he gets in.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, he'll get.
Yeah. Because I think, am I right's like currently shorting because he didn't get declared for the Ultima, but I don't think there's a chance that he'll be able to run on this ground. The only one that will be going in potentially, I've got a little bit of information. I'll just put it into the stream. I had a message earlier that Where It All Began might actually be running in the Kim Muir now. They've had a slight rethink. Obviously, they didn't have Free Car Bragg in the National Hunt Chase, so perhaps he now goes to the Irish National, and Where It All Began potentially comes here. He shortened today's 16-1 best price, but I have had some word that he might be coming here, which is quite exciting for me.
Okay, Where It All Began. My best bet of the week, apart from that, is Ginny's Destiny in the Turners. I think he's got an almighty chance for Paul Nicholls. Okay, that's me done. Dan, finish with you then.
Nap on the Tuesday. I just think rock solid County Classico. I think we'll have to run his race. I can't see a world where he isn't there or thereabouts. Next best, I will go Essay Partir in the Fred Winter. Been again a horse I just keep going on about, and I think he's just been laid out for the race. Hope he runs well. Rest of the week, I'll go back to some old favourites. Yours and I still think is overpriced at 9-1 in the bumper. He's the highest rated horse in the race. Still getting dismissed for absolutely no reason. Has the best form. There are improvers in there for sure. But generally speaking, I think the last 10 winners have all raced more than once in bumpers. And all the improvers you're probably hoping on are doing that. He actually has better form than Jalon Dudery when you draw a line for Embassy Gardens. So please put some respect on you ought to know's name. I'm sick of having to go solo on this one. Gabby's Cross in the Attempts. Another horse I've been all over for a while. Just think, again, laid out for the race. Love that he's fresh. Always goes well fresh. Reduced hurdles mark. And then the other horse who I can't stop going on about, who is being backed. Well, there's only two horses being backed in the race. It's the Martin Pipe, Waterford Whispers. Keeps getting smashed in. He's now about 5-1 for the race, just behind Key de Bourbon. Wow. Love his profile. Yeah, all over him.
Great stuff, Dan. Thanks everyone to anyone who's watched this and to those who've commented as well. Some really nice bets actually just going in the chat there. I suppose final word on this, please do like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us. I would say, lads, my biggest advice for the week would be just take it easy. Let's just don't go too wild on the first day. Look after yourselves and enjoy the week because it is one of the greatest 4 days in the calendar. We all love it. It's why we're all here. And to those of you who've kind of followed us throughout the season and our Ante-Post series, we hope you've all enjoyed it. And the reason we've done it is to get some winners. So we're all going to be hoping that something comes up at least from our Ante-Post book. Dan, have a great weekend. You too, Jake. I hope you both enjoy it. Thank you, I guess we'll see you on Tuesday or maybe even tomorrow night.
Yeah,
absolutely. And to say, hopefully see some of you guys there who've watched us. Thank you for all the support. If we see you on track, see you in the Feathered Fish, see you in town afterwards. Look forward to talking with you. And I swear to God, if my bets go terribly, please give me a bit of relief and don't go too hard. Because and hopefully by then my voice is still intact, unlike last year.
Yeah, it's worth noting if you do want to catch up with us and you don't see us on track, then the Feathered Fish straight after racing is where we always end up for a couple of drinks at least. So if you want to come down after racing any of the days, Feathered Fish is the place to be. And we'll be back next week to review it all our Ante-Post selections, all the festival. We'll see how we've done. Fingers crossed we make profit again.
Absolutely. And the final word from me, just the last comment I wanted to read out from Jake Mann. 3 of my favourite things: sun, sex, and shishkin. Cheers, Jake, for that. Top man. Hope everyone has a great week. Best of luck, and we'll see you all very soon here on The Jump Show.